What are you doing? Somebody leave the oven on. It's called a hard stare, Mr. Rosenthal. My Aunt Lucy taught me to do them when people have forgotten their manners. Marmalade sandwich. This was the closest thing that I could find to a Paddington outfit. My auntie's coat and my uncle's hat. So, yeah.
What the hell are you? We are Venom.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Rosenthal Reviews. Today we are talking about Paddington 3, aka Paddington in Peru. The film has now hit cinemas in the UK. I know that it hasn't in a lot of other countries, so don't worry. This review will be spoiler free. You can watch this review and not worry about getting spoiled for Paddington 3. In Paddington in Peru, we've got a few returning cast members, like Ben Wishaw, Hugh Bonneville, Madeleine Harris, Samuel Joslin. The only substitute being that Emily Mortimer is now playing Mrs. Brown instead of Sally Hawkins. And we've got a few new cast members, Olivia Coleman being my pick of the bunch. She plays this reverend mother who looks after Aunt Lucy in the home for retired bears. And this time around, Paddington and the Brown family, they're in Peru. They're outside of London. I'm not going to go into the major plot points, but let's just say they go on an adventure to find something that they've lost. Now, I don't resonate too much with the original Paddington IP. I was minus something years old when it came out. But I must admit, I'm really loving the little film franchise that this is turning into. I thought the first Paddington film was really charming. Ben Wishaw was perfect casting for Paddington. The initial family chemistry was brilliant. The London setting was fantastic. Nicole Kidman plays a cheesy villain. What's not to love? But then we get to Paddington 2. A near-perfect sequel to me, a near-perfect animated film. Everything was just up to notch from its predecessor. The Paddington antics, the prison storyline, the dog food commercial actor played amazingly by Hugh Grant. And yeah, by the end of the film, I was tearing up. I loved it. As a result, I went into Paddington in Peru with pretty high hopes. I was looking forward to seeing the Brown family on some more adventures in Peru. My opening thoughts on the film? I had a good time. The original charm of the series remains. Once again, the messaging is really on point as well, particularly for families bringing children. My hypothetical future children, this is messaging that I would want them to be exposed to. The cast were great. Hugh Bonneville, my personal favourite. He was delightful in this film. He had a bunch of funny gags that had me laughing out loud. And you know what? Because this was in Peru, we're going through the rainforest, we're on a bit of a mystery journey, the action and adventure was upped in this film as well. However, as humans, we cannot help but be creatures of comparison. And whilst this film does round off what is probably one of the better animated trilogies of recent times, it does fall short of the first two installments. So let's start with the messaging of this film and why I think in particular it's great for families and bringing children to the theatres to see this. Throughout the film, we are constantly touching on this value of family, and in particular, this messaging of if you can see it, if you can appreciate family right in front of you, you become rich in a way that you can't imagine. You become richer than those who, for example, in this film, might go seek a ton of gold. There was also a nice message towards the end of the film on where you call home and where you come from and the potential difference between these two things. Again, I think these are really appropriate and nice messages for families in the theatres. And to be fair, they're crafted in such a way that they're subtle. They're not overly obvious so that you as an adult are rolling your eyes every half an hour. The cast once again are great. Hugh Bonneville was delightfully witty and charming. He had me laughing out loud. There was this one gag to do with a giant tarantula, which came up a few times throughout the film, which had me laughing. The Mrs. Brown substitute with Sally Hawkins stepping out and Emily coming in. This caught me off guard because I wasn't actually aware that this was happening in the film. So for the first 10-15 minutes, I was kind of like, what's going on? But by the end of the film, Emily had done a fantastic job of convincing me of her portrayal of Mrs. Brown. The kids' storylines evolve given the time that has passed, which I appreciated, because the difference between the release of the first and second installment was around 3 years, whereas here, between the second and third, it's 7 years. So the writers did a good job in updating their character context to keep them relevant. Olivia Coleman plays this reverend mother who looks after Aunt Lucy in the the home for retired bears. And of course, as you'd expect, she brings her Oscar-level talent to this role. But actually, funnily enough, the best part of her in this film was this musical number, which I wasn't expecting. She was brilliant. It was so funny. And of course, Ben Wishaw was as perfect as ever with his lessons in manners and Paddington antics that were making my audience laugh throughout the entirety of the film. However, whilst these gags and this charm is very much present in this film, the word that I would use is that it's dampened. It's not quite as good as it was in the first two films. And for me, having thought about it, I think the reason is because he's been removed from the London setting and placed in a more natural habitat of Peru. Paddington is Paddington. He's going to be charming and funny no matter the setting. But the charm and the gags are elevated because of the setting of London, because you are watching Paddington in a barbershop cut a judge's hair and get it all wrong, or try and return a wallet who turns out to be a London criminal. Like, the setting of London elevates Paddington as a character. It is this fish out of water story, where you're watching Paddington, this overly polite bear, try and talk to these rude and obnoxious Londoners. Whereas with Paddington 3, we're going to Peru. And alright, sure, he hasn't been to the forest for a while, but it is more of his natural habitat, and therefore is less entertaining. As a result, Paddington in Peru does fall short of its predecessors. However, enough of the charm remains to make this a good sequel. Overall, on the Rosenthal Reviews ranking, I'm going to give Paddington in Peru a 6.5 out of 10. On the entertainment echelon, it's a 7 out of 10. The action and the adventure here makes for a fun time at the cinema. And on the feeling factor, throughout this film, you'll feel pretty charmed. Enjoy this film when you do eventually see it, and big emphasis on this, make sure you stay for the end credits. There are 2 end credit scenes. The first one is the main one, the second one is a little bit of an extra, but they were really funny and I was not expecting them at all. Anyway, I'll leave my review of Paddington in Peru there. Are you excited for this film? Have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, please subscribe for more reactions and reflections, and I'll speak to you all very soon. So I didn't actually have any marmalade. This is mango chutney. Has anyone ever had a mango chutney sandwich? Maybe I'm the first.